Thank you for joining us for the post-game media availability with Austin FC head coach Josh Wolff. We're going to get right into the questions here, beginning with Mike Craven, followed by Chris Bills, followed by Dennis De La Pena. So, Mike, if you're ready, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. 4 plan changes. It ended up being 6 pretty quickly there. Can you give us any update on Alex Ring, Nick Lima?
Yeah, obviously they were, Alex he took a hit yesterday in training and he tried to get through today. And right away in warm up, he had a bit of a setback from that. So he was obviously removed prior to the game. And then Nick's a significant hamstring injury. I think it was obvious what happened. It was on a full sprint. And it was unsettling. I think both of those combined, even though it was in the 9th, I'm not even sure when Nick went out. It was early. But it was unsettling. I think you could see it was unsettling to the group. Matt Beasler had a bad contusion where he didn't even finish training. He had a golf ball sized contusion that he had to get the swelling down, and he wasn't even able to finish training the day before. So we were trying to make some personnel changes to bring in some freshness. And again, I think we were up against it quick when Alex went out and obviously Nick went out. And then you start to see around the field, Hector's just now gotten back. So we were, trying to figure out a puzzle and thinking about the next couple games, but obviously what we could do in this game to stabilize and be competitive. And it was a difficult exercise without a doubt.
Great. We'll go to Chris.
Yeah, Josh, given the injury things that you just laid out, plus, we saw a lot of guys, rotation and the depth just isn't quite there right now. How much urgency do you feel right now to get some fresh bodies in and get some of these signings that you guys I know have been working on it? And how much urgency is there right now after performances like this, just so you don't, so it's not too late, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain amount of room that we have on our roster, and unfortunately we've had a number of injuries, and we added to that rather than going the other direction tonight. Obviously it was good to get Hector back. But I think we've been looking for players, and you also, you can't, I guess you make a big commitment now based on just right now, then it's a little bit, it can be a little hasty. So we have ideas of what we want. And certainly we need a striker. I think that's the obvious thing. We don't have one. We're certainly piecing that together each game based on what we think is best for the group. But I think we obviously were thin in midfield due to, again, I think, Alex was out and Danny Pereira was out, but again, you go get a player now, those guys are going to come back shortly from whatever injuries they have. So we got to be mindful of not making a knee-jerk reaction. We need a striker. We've been looking, and we're certainly zeroing in on a couple guys, and but it's difficult. So we have what we had today. There's certainly adversity came quickly today and in a couple different ways, and you also need to be up for it and just get ready to compete and grind. And I think throughout, as the game went on, the second half there was a better willingness to fight and compete. But the first half, I think the 2 blows hit the guys, and it was unsettling for whatever reason. But there still needs to be a level of intensity and energy and commitment to what we were doing. And we'll work on getting bodies fresh for the next game. But we know it's challenging.
Great. Dennis, you're up.
Yeah, Coach, I know Sunday will be your 3rd game in a 9-day span. You have the injury stacking up. I know you're trying to put these pieces together. I guess the one blessing, you got 4 straight home games. How much are you going to lean on the fans and the energy to get you through it? What's a tough patch right now?
Yeah, we'll definitely need to lean on them. And having seen the first game in the stadium, that'll be extremely helpful. But we do need physically, we need bodies, we need players. And right now it's been difficult. There's no doubt about it, but we got to continue to work as a staff and certainly our high performance, work on getting these guys fresh and in a place where they can compete. We have a game on Sunday and a game on Thursday, and we got to figure out who came out of this game with enough minutes in them, obviously for the Sunday game. We were piecing things together. One, because we didn't have, we had Aiden Stanley playing center mid because we're trying to manage some minutes to make sure we have bodies in there on the game against Columbus. And it's difficult, but it's part of the deal. And we got to keep pushing forward. And, I think the adversity will make us better in the long run, but we got to buckle in and certainly continue to get better.
Our next three will come from John Lupo, Mark Turner, and Bob Ballou. John, if you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Will. Josh, despite the scoreline, I thought that, especially after they scored their 2 goals, your guys at least competed well. Diego had a shot that they had to make a save on. Brad made some good saves in the second half. So, again, despite the scoreline, you have to be at least happy with the compete level of the team.
Yeah, again, I think I mentioned, in the second half, we were hanging on there in the first half. And again, I think it had to do with, we were a little bit, we certainly got a little bit stunned by the fact that we lost a couple guys real quick in the game or even before the game. And then it was regrouping within, giving up a goal and giving up 2 goals pretty quickly. But coming in and talking about it at halftime and obviously coming back out, there was a little more urgency and certainly intensity in the way that we ran and competed and pressed. And that certainly helped. Creating more chances is still something that we have to do better. Obviously, as we start moving guys around into different positions, it was obviously going to be difficult. But there were a few opportunities in there. I think Tomas had a good chance at the very beginning of the game. I think Cecilio and Rodney were close to some, in the first 10, 15 minutes as well. So the second half, there were a few opportunities in transition, and that was kind of where we figured we'd take our best opportunities or best looks. But when you start moving guys around, and obviously it starts to break up some of the cohesion of how we want to play and the structure. But again, it was difficult to get guys in a place that we could stay competitive and also be thinking about these next 2 games because, health becomes an issue. It becomes an issue real quick. Hector hadn't played, and if he kept playing, we'd risk injury, and then he's our remaining right back. So we were very mindful of where we were with guys like him and Diego and Tomas, knowing we're limited in some positions, really limited.
Mark?
Hey, Coach. So obviously you had several guys out there tonight that either haven't had very many minutes or several of them are actually making their first starts for Austin FC. You obviously talked about the guys that you're missing either through enforced injury or with Alex and Nick, things happening late on. When one door closes, another one opens. So I wonder, of those guys who were introduced to the starting 11 this evening, which of them impressed you, and which of them really you felt like took their opportunity to impress you tonight?
Again, I think it was fairly difficult. It was, again, for Manny, we had him up top with the idea that he would be able to stretch the field and he would work, on being an outlet to again offer space underneath for guys like Tomas and Cecilio. So it was difficult, and I think the scoreline and what happened also made it difficult on many of them. But it was good to see Aiden out there. It was, I think again a combination of things in the first half had him penned in really narrow, and he had some difficulty finding his positioning. But the second half, with intensity and just better instruction and just better understanding what we're doing, he certainly did better. So I was, excited to the second half at least turn for him. Rodney needs to continue to improve. Tonight wasn't good enough from Rodney. And he's, coming back from his knee injury at the end of preseason. He hasn't quite got back to form where he was really strong in preseason. And, he tore his meniscus and had a little bit of damage. And for whatever reason, he hasn't gotten back to that good place. And we just got to keep working with him and physically and certainly psychologically. But, it was difficult. It was a difficult evening. And again, I think Aiden stabilized in the second half, and then we had him playing as a center mid at one point. So it was a few things going on out there that I certainly didn't see before the game.
You might need to get your cleats on, Coach.
Yeah, that's definitely not happening.
Going to Bob next.
Yeah, Josh, just kind of building off that, I think you played 5 guys 22 or under tonight. I'm curious, in the long run, how great that experience will be for them, how nice it is to at least get that part of it in, and then just obviously how difficult it is to win when you're going through something like that as well. Yeah, no, it's challenging. It is good to see those guys get opportunity. Again, Johan came back in, and again, I think he started very shaky. He looked a little nervous. And Manny Perez, and another young guy, Aiden, a young guy, Sebastian, who's seen some minutes with us already. So it is good. It's good experience, but they also need to understand it's going to be challenging when the focus and the mentality has to be right from the get-go, and it will help them in their development and progression.
it didn't help matters the way that this game started, and certainly the injuries that took place. But you also just got to be able to roll up your sleeves and compete at times, and it's not going to be perfect in any game for a number of reasons. And I think as that game went on, we did a better job of that side of it. We maybe we lacked some quality and ideas, and certainly fatigue hit us again in the latter parts of the second half. But there's certainly few positives, but we'll have to look at it and digest this game. But again, now it's about seeing where the guys are at, trying to get a good recovery in the next couple of days to have as fresh a group as we can to go on Sunday.
We'll go back up to the top with Mike Craven. Mike, do you want to ask another?
Oh, no, I'm good. I think that's from the first.
Okay. Chris Bills. We have time for one more.
Yeah, Josh. Taking Cecilia off at halftime, you mentioned that guys were a little bit shaken by the injuries and things. How much of what we saw in the second half was, even trying to chase the game versus, like you said, sort of saving yourself a little bit for what's coming on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, it's saving yourself is probably the wrong language. I mean, we're also trying to be just responsible with our players. Diego was faded in the last game, and certainly was fading in this game, and his quality dipped because he was physically in a difficult place. And Hector, we had to be mindful of, and Tomas now again. So when you start thinking of what players you may or may not have available to run the risk of something else happening, this didn't make sense. So a lot of what happened in the second half, again, there was some injection of some energy and certainly a bit more intensity from the guys that were on the field. So that helped out. We obviously gave up some shots. We were trying to, take our chances and get to goal. And if you could get one, at least it put you in a spot where you could chase it a bit. But it was difficult exercise. I'm at a loss of words, just based on kind of what's unfolded in the last few days, and obviously today. Made it a little bit more difficult based on, some of the injuries.
Let's go back to Mark. Mark, you got one more? Or no? No? Looks like no. Michelle Sanchez from Telemundo, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much. Hi, Coach. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Great. I guess coming off of what you just said, how do you feel? I mean, how do you keep these guys healthy? You mentioned you have after Columbus, another quick turnaround as well. So how do you keep these guys healthy? How do you feel?
Well, we got to get them. Obviously, we got to recover from this game and see where they're at. They got to get a food in them. Get a good night's rest. We'll be back at St. David's Performance Center tomorrow, and again, a lot of cold pulls, hyperbaric, cryotherapy, anything we can to get the guys that played major minutes and some of the other guys that certainly played major minutes the other day, get them to a place where come Friday, we can have a training session, and hopefully on Saturday we'll have the full group. And those things we just have to wait and see, but it's part of sport. We certainly are down on numbers, and that affects some of the things that we're able to do. But a lot of the next 2 days is going to be about recovery, and most of what our game plan and strategy will come via certainly video and more discussions and laying it out in front of them rather than doing the work on the field, because we got to be mindful physically where they're at. But it's challenging. The short answer is it's challenging.
Great. I want to thank